Dockerizing an Oz lambda function allows you to package your application and its dependencies in a container, which can simplify deployment and scaling. Below is a step-by-step tutorial on how to create a dockerized Python Oz lambda function. Step 1. Set up your environment. 1. Install Docker. Make sure you have Docker installed on your machine. You can download it from Docker's official website. Tips. Woo, Docker, come get started. Install Oz CLI if you haven't already. Install the Oz command line interface CLI. You can follow the installation guide here. Docs all. CLI latest user guide getting started. Install. Configure Oz CLI. Run the following command to configure your Oz credentials. Make sure you have the necessary YAM permissions to deploy Lambda functions. Create a project directory bash my Lambda function. My Lambda function. 2. Create a Python file. Create a file named app.py in the project directory with the following code. This is a simple Lambda function that returns a greeting. Step 5. Test the Docker image. Locally, you can test your Lambda function locally using Docker. Run the following command: bash docker run 8080 me lambda function. Now you can invoke the function using curl bash curlx post localhost 9000 2015 331 functions function invocations name Docker. You should receive a response like hello Docker. Step 6. Push the Docker image to Amazon Echo. 1. Create an Echo repository. Bash Oz Echo create repository name me lambda function. 2. Authenticate Docker to your Echo. Bash Oz Echo get login password region your region Docker login username Oz passwords in your accounted. Trick. Tag your Docker image. Bash Docker tag me lambda function latest your account with. Tricker. Push the Docker image. Bash Docker push your account with. Tricker. Step 8. Invoke your Lambda function. You can now invoke your Lambda function from the Oz CLI bash Oz lambda invoke function name Docker lambda payload name Oz response. Check the response file to see the output of your Lambda function. Step 9. Cleanup to avoid incurring charges. You may want to delete the Lambda function and Echo repository. After testing bash Oz lambda delete function name Docker lambda use a delete repository name lambda function force conclusion. You have successfully dockerized a Python Oz lambda function. This approach allows you to leverage the flexibility of Docker while benefiting from the serverless architecture of Oz lambda. You can further extend this by adding more dependencies to your Lambda function and adjusting the Docker file accordingly.